This is PBS.
About Your House with Bob Yap was partially underwritten by the National Trust for Historic Preservation.
In past places and future spaces, from main streets to back roads, we're helping Americans bring preservation home. The National Trust for Historic Preservation.
Welcome to today's program. It's about old house energy efficiency, and we're going to talk specifically about windows and doors. Now, I could have picked a really fancy entry door to come into and do this whole open, but I tell you what, I decided to do it in front of a window because a window is what brings light into your house. It's also a big leaky spot. And this is a completely restored window from the original house in the 1890s. Now, there are a whole bunch of ways that you can weather strip windows. I want to take you out to Cape Cod to an 18th century Cape Cod house right on the beach, where they're going to be putting in what we call a jam liner. Let's go out and take a peek. Now, with this jam liner system, you don't have to cut the edge of the window off. A lot of them you do, but not with this one. All you have to do is route a groove down the side of each side of the window. Then this jam liner is not foam back. It's a good sturdy vinyl, but it's real thin, so you don't have to cut those windows off. It fits right into that groove. Now, what happens next, of course, is that you set the window up into place. Now, before they put it there, they put some clips on the jamb. That's the side of the window opening. And they set it in there, and they snap it into those clips. And then they caulk both sides of it. It's real weather tight, and it keeps the original look of the window. Well, jam liners are a great way to weatherize an old window. There's no question about it. There's a little problem, though, is that a lot of you probably don't have the tools it takes to do it. So I'm going to show you some ways that you can do things without spending $1 bazillion on tools. Now, this is a double hung window. I'm going to show you how this works here in a little bit, but you have a sash with glass down the bottom and a sash up here with glass on the top. Now, there's a rope that hooks into the side of this window unit, comes up here, goes up through a pulley up here at the top, comes around into an empty cavity, and it's hooked to a weight, and that counterbalances the window so it can go up and down. Now, one of the problems with that, in some people's opinion, is that you need to insulate this pocket. And if you have the weight, of course, you can't, because the insulation would stop the weight. Well, there is a little thing that you can buy. It's called a Pullman, and it looks like the front of the original pulley, but it has a strap inside of it. Oh, man, that strap is in there on a big spring. It's really a strong spring, so you can take this pulley out, slip this one in there, bring the strap down, and hook it onto the side of the window, and you can fill this cavity up with insulation if you want to. I'm not sure it's really necessary, and there are some other ways to do it. Now, another thing that you can buy is what we call a pulley seal. Now, a lot of air comes in and out of this pulley up here, so this pulley seal just slips over the rope like this. It comes up, and it comes up over the pulley itself, which is really kind of an interesting concept. And it fits on it like that. Okay, so it's over the pulley. Now, one of the issues is you have to move the sash up and down to make sure it's sliding up and down the rope. That's important. And then a couple of screws will hold that in. Yes. There we go. There's one. And two. That holds real tight and no air can get through there. And then you can keep using your weights. Now, here's another one I really love. It's called rope caulk. Now, rope caulk comes from the hardware store. It's in a big coil, very inexpensive. And in the winter, and if you want to in the summer when you're air conditioning, you just put it along the gaps where the air's coming through. The nice thing about it is that you can just pull it off whenever you want to without marring the finish, and you don't want to mess up the finish on your woodwork. Now, there's a couple other things I want to show you here. One of them has to do with some weather stripping down here. Now, you can get this at the hardware store too. This is just a high-density foam weatherizing material, sticky backed, and we've taken it and put it along the bottom edge of this window sash so that when you close this, it gets a nice seal down here, and that's important. Let me show you something else. I got all kinds of little things to show you here.
This is called a window zipper. Now, a window zipper is this tool. It has little serrated knife edges, actually little saw edges on either side, and it's flat like that. Now, if you have a window sash that's painted shut up here, and you need to free it up, or even a lower one, you just take the little edge, little saw edge, and run it along here. Cuts the paint line, and you can use the sash. Why would you want to use your upper sash? Well, if you have a full screen on the outside, you can drop the top sash, raise the lower sash, the hot air in the room goes out the top, and the cool breeze comes in the bottom. And man, that is cheap air conditioning.
I'm taking this second. I've got one more screw left. I'll tell you what I'm doing here. I'm taking off this cheesy aluminum storm. And I have to tell you, whoever invented these things wasn't using their noggin at all. Aluminum conducts heat and cold. That means when you're heating inside in the winter, the heat comes right through this aluminum to the outside. And same thing with air conditioning in the summer. It just makes no sense whatsoever. Plus, it's a triple track, which means you can raise it up and down. Well, that's a neat feature, except air can infiltrate around it, so it's not even a good windbreak. So I'm getting rid of this baby. I got one more screw left here. All right. Let's get this off of here. Boy, this thing is so flimsy, it's scary. And let's give this sucker a toss. Hey, Fritz, thanks a lot for meeting me over here. Look, I really appreciate it. I mean, I really do.
What are you running from, bud?
Well, I just threw a triple track aluminum storm off a porch and it shattered into a million pieces, and the neighbors, I think, are a little upset.
Well, at least it went where it's supposed to.
Yeah, no kidding. This is Fritz Miller, my good buddy, and also a real expert on old house, historic parts of old houses. And I brought him here to talk about historic wood storms on houses. Now, what's interesting about this 1870s house is it has these little mortises in the brick molding here, or little notches. Tell me about all this, Fritz.
Well, of course, the house originally had shutters, Bob, which was standard on most old houses, literally from the time the colonies came, right up until about the 1870s or 80s, when glass manufacturing processes allowed them to make a storm a little bit cheaper, and then they became standard from there on.
About 1890, didn't
About
they?
1890 was
Yeah.
when that happened.
Now, what I like about this, of course, is that this is a very high-quality wood storm. It's brand new. It has the traditional storm hangers up there, the metal hooks. You just take that baby right off of there. And I want to show this, what we call a through mortise joint. And that is a tongue that goes through a slot in this piece, and that's what holds it together, and it has some pins over here to hold it, but there's no glue.
Now glue, Bob.
That's right, and that's because wood contracts and expands, and it's real important that if it was glued together, then you'd get a lot of cracking, you'd have some problems. The other thing we do with this storm is we put a high-density foam weather stripping on both sides and on the top up here, but not on the bottom, because you have condensation sometimes and it needs a way to get out. That's very important to remember. Now, I'll show you, this thing just hooks right back up again. Just like that. Now, we make these out of pine in the Midwest, but out on the West Coast, they seem to use a lot more fir. Of course, fir is more prevalent out there. Here's a full screen that goes with this. Now, what's important about a full screen is that if you have a double hung window, that's where the bottom sash comes up and the top sash comes down, then you use it with this full screen, because the hot air is going to go out the top when you lower it, and when you raise the bottom sash, the cool breeze is going to come in. You can't do that with a triple track aluminum, which only has a screen on the bottom. You need a full screen to do it. Now, one of the hassles with these, of course, is that in the spring you get up and you change them around. In the fall you do the same thing. Let's take them over and show them something really neat with wood storms.
Sounds good.
Wait a minute, Fritz. Is this some sort of cruel joke? This is a full screen just like the one we just looked at.
Now, Bob, you know better than that.
Yeah, I kind of do, actually. Let's turn this baby around and let me show everybody. Yes, it is a full screen like we just looked at, full screen on the outside, but on the inside is a treasure. And that treasure is a removable glass insert that you can take out from the inside of the house. You can clean it, store it in a closet when you want some breezes coming in the house. It's a great design. And oh yeah, okay, now this is the bottom insert. And you can see here it has a built-in weather stripping that goes all the way around the entire insert. Well, let's go ahead and put it in. All right, fits right into this little rabbit here. And then once it's in there, these turnbuckles just turn like that.
and it's in. Now, how did this originally get developed? Because I know you turned me on to this years ago.
Well, Bob, the company that developed this storm was working on a historic building in Davenport, and they wanted to come up with a compromise that they didn't have to change out every season.
Well, boy, that is the biggest issue. Now, here's one. I used to use these on a lot of houses, and they're not too bad. It's a wood storm, but it's kind of a flimsy frame. The mortise joint here is a slot. It's not real stable. But it also has only a screen on the bottom, not one on the top and bottom, so you can't use that top sash inside, which I think is a problem. But there's something else I don't like about it, and that is, well, you know, the aluminum triple tracks. They have the self-storing mechanism just like this, and see, only there we go. The problem is it's really kind of loose in here, and air can infiltrate between this vinyl and the metal strip.
It's really a combination storm window in a wooden frame.
It's an option.
It's better than aluminum.
Yeah, well, there's no doubt about that. Now remember this, that a high-quality aluminum triple-track storm doesn't cost any more or any less than a high-quality wood storm. You need to remember that. A lot of people think wood storms are going to be a lot more expensive. Well, you don't have to get up and down with these, and they really can make your house energy efficient. Well, this incredible view out here is from West Yarmouth on Cape Cod, and way out there is the Nantucket Sound. Beautiful view, and that's why I brought you here. Well, no, I'm just kidding. I brought you here because we were talking about historic sashes going into an old house before in the original jamb. Well, a jamb, of course, is the frame that the sashes go up and down in. But sometimes, because you want a better view or you need some ventilation or something like that, you want to add in a complete new window. Now, I've asked George Blakely, he's the general contractor on this job, to come out and talk to us. Hi, George.
Bob, welcome to Cape Cod.
Good to see you, good to see you. And this is a complete window unit, but it has some interesting features to it. Now, I saw inside the original windows had 6 lights. That's each pane is considered a light.
That's correct, true divided.
Right. And so you've matched that almost identically.
That's right.
And these are wood muttons, and they're actually puttied in just like the original sash.
That's right.
Right. And you're going to put a wood storm over this.
I'm going to put a wood storm over this.
Okay, and that'll fit right in here, and that'll make this really tight, even though it's not double glazed.
It's not double glazed.
Right. Now, here is what we call a jamb liner, or you guys call them...
We call them a window balance.
Right. And it's foam back, so it's real weather tight.
That's right.
And these sashes will tilt in, so people can wash them easily.
That's correct.
All right. And then I've noticed that there are 9 windows here, 9 lights, instead of the 6 like the original windows.
Right. We're trying to capture the view and still maintain the historical integrity of the old home.
That makes sense.
This window is called a cottage window.
Yeah. That's because the top sash is smaller than the bottom sash.
That's correct.
Now, this sill is very thick, and it's like the originals, and on a new window unit, you'd get a thinner sill, but this is really nice because it matches up the original.
Right.
Made out of mahogany?
Made out of mahogany.
Just like a boat?
Yeah.
All right. Now, the other thing that you've done is you've put the casing or the trim on here already, so it looks like it's pretty much ready to go.
That's right.
Okay, put her in. It slips right in. That's great. Sill's tight, and the casings are good to go. Now, the most important thing to remember here is that the framing is not exactly right, so you have to use some shims. Thanks, George. And here's the level. All right. Now, this is the side of the jamb, and there's one on the other side of the window, too. And this has to be straight up and down and plumb, or level. And the way they do that is with shims. Now, these are cedar shims. That's what we have here. Same thing right here. And they basically slide these in between the jamb and the framing, and then they can adjust these in or out to make sure that this is straight up and down. Now, they'll put these shims here on the other side and on the bottom underneath the sill from the inside, and that'll get it so it's in really good shape. Now, they'll nail it on this side and the other side, but they won't nail it at the top, and they don't need to shim it at the top, and this thing is really plumb. That's beautiful. All right, I love it. Now, the bottom line to this is it's a very historic old house. Tell me a little bit about it.
This house was built in 1773. It was moved here in 1929 from Harwich, which is about 20-25 miles from.
Probably by mule or something.
Well, possibly, possibly. But it is a nice property. It's a good example of true Cape Cod architecture. It's a full cape, and Cape Cod architecture evolves out of necessity and over time, and that's why we're doing the windows.
Well, it's a beautiful house, and you're doing a great job. I'll hold that for you.
Thanks, Bob.
Good to see you. Thanks, George. Double hung sashes have been around for ages. They are great air conditioning, they look right, and if you're going to put them in an old house, you're going to add some new in, make sure that they flow with the original window sashes.
Now here's an interesting door, and it has a great story to go right with it. Now, this house that I'm standing in front of was built in the 1870s, and this whole door system here was put in 1903. Now, the guy that bought the house and renovated it in 1903, that's who we landmarked the house to. It used to have two doors with a half arch on each door coming down Italianate, and then it was changed into this colonial revival doorway. Now, on either side are what we call side lights that were added in 1903. And what's interesting about this door is these raised panels, you see them here on the door, they line up exactly with the raised panels on the side lights. So we know this door was put in 1903 at the time the revival porch and the whole entry was put in. When it comes to old house energy efficiency, doors are a big loss of energy. There's no question about it. Now look at this beautiful door. This has leaded glass windows. It has scallops coming around here, chipped carvings for flowers and all these different patterns. It is a beautiful door, 1890s Queen Anne, original to the house. Taking this off would be a shame. Now, you don't want a big metal door here with fake raised panels. It just makes the house look funny, and there are ways to make these old doors energy efficient. There's also a lot of different styles on old houses. Well, here's yet another historic door, and I really like this one. It's on a Queen Anne house, just like that other one we looked at. But the door is very unique. It has a round piece in the middle, and beveled glass all the way around, cut in really nice design. It's really unique. I love it. It also has two raised panels. The raised panel is real indicative of a lot of historic doors. And we have this really nice knob set here. I love it. The doorknob itself has a big old honeybee on the front of it. And then down here is a hive with a bee going into it. They've got this upside down, actually, because the hive's upside down, but it's still really neat. I love this kind of historic stuff, especially on old doors. Now, there's something we have to do here. We have to weather strip it to make it energy efficient. And I'm going to show you how to do that, but first we have to go to the hardware store and get everything we need. Let's go. Well, the best place to get weather stripping is at a full-service lumberyard or a hardware store. Now, at this lumberyard, they have lots of great stuff. These are thresholds that go underneath doors. They have vinyl, rubber, felt weather stripping, even weather stripping for garage doors. Now, I'm looking for a door sweep and some rigid weather stripping for a door. Here's a door sweep right here. This is oak. It's not quite as formal as I'm looking for, but as a door, it goes onto the bottom of a door, and as it swings open, this rubber rubs against the floor and keeps the air from coming in. Now, I need something more formal. I like this brass one. Let's see if we can find some rigid that'll go with it. Here's some brass. Looks just like it. We're going to have to buy 2 packs of this because our door's taller, so we're looking at about 35 bucks. It's cheap. Let's go put it on. All right, well, we have the weather stripping right here. And we have the door sweep. We have everything we need. All we don't have are the tools. I'll be right back. Of course, the tools are not that big of a deal. You're talking about a tape measure, a Phillips screwdriver, and a hacksaw, really. The first thing you have to do, though, is measure the door opening. Make sure you write down all the measurements. I get them all at once. That way you have it when you go over to the saw. Now, this is a power miter box with a carbide blade moving very slowly through the metal. But it's an expensive tool that I have because I renovate old houses. So get a square, make a mark where you want to cut it, then get your utility knife out and cut that neoprene rubber right at that mark. And then the next step is to cut it with a hacksaw. Now, a hacksaw is something that you can go to the hardware store and buy for about 20 bucks. It makes the cut just fine, so you don't have to spend a bazillion dollars on tools. Now, once you get the first piece cut, you need to snug it up to the door, and you can see this is short because the door's real tall, so we have to use 2 pieces. And once you get it up there, you just put the screws in one at a time. Now, I'm using a power screwdriver here, and you don't have to have that. You can use the Phillips screwdriver if you want to. Now, down at the bottom is a threshold. That's why we cut that at the angle, that little filler piece there. This is really an interesting thing. This is a door closer, and it's in the way, so we had to notch it out with the hacksaw. Now, you have to open the door a little bit to get it around there and get it screwed in once you get it up there nice and snug. The last piece is the top piece. You have to bend it just a hair to get it up there so that it's really tight. Push it up against there, put your screws in, and you are set. All right, well, it's not that tough to put up weather stripping, and it sure makes the door weather tight, especially these historic doors. The other thing to remember, though, is that you need a second part to this to make it really tight on this entryway, and that's the storm door that Phil's bringing over. Hey, Phil.
Hi, Bob.
All right, we've already preset this, so we're just going to get it onto the hinge. All right, let's put these pins in. These are the hinge pins. They just slip down in there. I get this bottom one in down here. That's good. And there we go. All right, now see if it closes.
All right, good job. Thanks. Now, this screen over here is something you'd use in the spring and the fall. You can use it in the summer as well if you don't use central air. But if you use central air, you should really consider using glass in the summer and in the winter, and of course, the winter all the time. For an entry door to your house, there's another option. Well, I haven't talked about it because it's really not my favorite, but it is an option. And that's a steel insulated door. That's what this is. This is steel, and it's insulated on the inside. And it's on the back of this particular old house, which is good in my opinion because it doesn't show from the front. But it does pick up some historical elements. It has the raised panel stamped into the metal here. It has double insulated glass, which is a modern touch, but it has the divided lights as well, like we've talked about before. So it gives some of the elements of that look. And that's okay. It's going to cost you between $300 and $500. Jamb, that's the frame around it, and the door installed by a carpenter. And it kind of depends on where you are in the country, but that's the range. Now, we've talked about a lot of different things today, doing with windows, storm doors, storm windows, and regular old historic doors. Great stuff. I hope it's been informative for you. Thanks for spending some time with me today. I'm Bob Yap, about your house.
About Your House with Bob Yap was partially underwritten by the National Trust for Historic Preservation.
In past places and future spaces, from main streets to back roads, we're helping Americans bring preservation home. The National Trust for Historic Preservation.